Richard Weeks returns to Wrestling Audio Revolution programming as War goes international.
That's how I know what's going on in wrestling today, is because of my mom. She watches it almost religiously. I recently changed cable providers.
Okay.
So we don't get USA anymore. So I would download it or rent it from a video store.
Rent
Because in Barbados you have bootleg video stores. So if you don't have cable, you can go to the store and buy a DVD or rent it. But nowadays it's usually buy. So you can buy any show you want. You can buy CSI, I don't know, American Idol, Raw. It's not legal, but it's accepted because Americans won't let you watch it any other way. Like the pay-per-views, that's how we would watch pay-per-views. We either go to a bar and watch it, or you rent it from one of these stores. You buy it from one of the stores. A really good store will have it the next day. Not so good stores 2 days later, and depends on how hot that show was. They can make it available the next day, but then when you go, all could be gone. And it depends what other things they have to produce too. Like what other shows people want. It's not just a wrestling shop.
Your whole legacy, like the bed did the bad Shanzi and the shotgun. Force, that's the other one. 3 Musketeers up in the sea like Jonathan. Mudo Hashimoto, Ernest Matthews, he like Hase. Parliament funk, burning a hammer like Kabashi. Come on. Super show flow. Super show flow. I'm about to wreck the body with my super show flow. I'm about to wreck the body with my super show flow. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Super Show 14. It's the show. It's the 14th one we've done, and it's only getting better. The weather's getting warmer, and the boys of summer are here. The only difference being that it's not summer, it's spring, and I'm not Don Henley, although I do wish I had his money and his ponytail. My name's Shotgun Shan. I'm going to be leading the show today, and I've got 2 really special guests. They're the guys that you really tune in to see. I'm just here to lead you through it. First of all, we've got the most respected man in wrestling journalism, none other than Commissioner Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I am doing very well, sir. It is very hard to live up to that title.
Yeah, and yet you do it every week.
I try very hard.
I know. It's crazy. I mean, when you see the mobs of people waiting to talk to Sean Cunningham at the end of our recording sessions, it's insane. But I'm so glad you're here, Sean. I have to take a moment quickly to introduce our third compatriot. He's none other than the Grime Minister. He can be a volatile presence sometime, but he always brings the magic. It's none other than Luke Force. Luke, how are you, my brother?
Pyro, gentlemen. My apologies for not being able to be in my home studio today and joining you via telephone, but luckily I'm on a BlackBerry. And when did me and Sean become guests around here there, buddy? Let's get that cleared up real soon here. we invited you into the house, and then we become the guests. But
I'm the house guest that refused to leave, and now I've taken over. I put a padlock on the fridge, and I've just put all the phones.
NWO now? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I hope not. Go ahead. I mean, no offense.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, so I apologize. My house was a little bit noisy today. My neighbors are basically, I won't sugarcoat it. My neighbors are babysitting a hellhound. Let's put it that way. And it just won't shut up. It's just goes for 9 hours a day. Luckily, May the 7th, this dog will be leaving. Otherwise, it might have to. And I'm, the biggest animal lover you'll ever find, but we may have a little bit of an old Yeller situation happening if this goes on much longer.
Well, my question is, did the hellhound steal your hot dog?
My veggie dog? No, it didn't.
No? Okay. See, you both missed that reference. Never mind. There's a Big Bang Theory reference in there that just right over both of you. That's okay.
Oh, man. I hate when that happens.
Yeah. But all is well, guys? You're feeling good?
I'm feeling great, man. I've just had my first bikini wax of the year, so I'm ready to go.
Oh.
I understand that we have a birthday this week in the family.
We do, Mike.
I read it on the internet, Wikipedia.
Yes, my son is 10, thank goodness. Wonderful boy, and we are just having a wonderful day today. So big shout out to my boy Yoey. Are we ready to jump into this, guys?
I think so.
I mean, here's the thing.
We've had quite the week.
We've had quite the week, and I think rather than just sitting down and doing basic recaps of the shows, we got a few topics of conversation that are going to span probably multiple different references. So I think we'll just jump off right here by talking about A wonderful, great newcomer, an NXT find, Mr. Enzo Amore. As we know on Payback, he was in the opening match of Payback, of the proper show, anyway, not the pre-show. Although, what's the how do we differentiate now between the pre-show and the real show if it's all running on the network? I guess I just don't even...
The pre-show is available on other sources for free. The actual pay-per-view is not.
Okay, all right.
That is the difference.
Well, guys, especially when matches that are advertised for the main show actually get pushed to the pre-show. That's when it gets really confusing.
So technically, it's possible for more people to watch the pre-show than the actual show.
Yes.
Okay, so it's actually an honor if you get put on the pre-show. That means you want everybody to see it.
Yeah, really.
So they opened up in this match against the Vaudevillains, and it started off great in typical Enzo fashion. He kind of ruled the microphone, and I thought Cass looked great. But how soon into the match did this accident occur? It was only like 3 or 4 minutes, wasn't it?
Barely even that. It seemed closer to like 1 or 2.
For anybody who didn't see it, Enzo got tossed into the rope by Simon Gotch, and I guess he was supposed to slide under, caught the rope with his jaw, his head snapped back into the mat, he rolled outside the ring and appeared to be dead. Quite honestly, looking at the look in his eyes and the complete lifelessness, I mean, this wasn't a guy who was rolling around with his eyes closed. He was out with his eyes open.
No, I wondered if he'd broken his neck at that point. In watching it back.
That's one of the thoughts, and I know that, Luke, you thought of another recent tragedy as soon as you saw this, right?
Well, I think all three of us probably did. If you've seen the video of Perro Aguayo there from, I guess a year ago or so.
Yeah, very true.
That. I mean, that was the first thing I thought about, and it really did shock me. I mean, I won't hold back to say that it did shock me, and it is something that you're definitely playing Russian roulette with when you show like 2 or 3 replays of this spot before you even have people out there, knowing that he's alive. That was one thing I was pretty shocked at with WWE, that they were so quick to show the replay when they really didn't know anything about how badly he was hurt.
It really was ill-advised, and thank goodness for everybody that it worked out the way it did. I mean, Enzo, they've come back and said now that Enzo does have a concussion, but he's tested negative for all other serious injury tests. And let's hope that this concussion is not going to keep him out for too long. The good thing with Enzo is if you're out of action as Enzo, you can still talk, and that's where his big game is anyway. So, I mean, it's not like he's going to be completely out of action. Here's a question for you. Enzo's laying on the ground, on his back, kind of crumpled up. Simon Gotch jumps out of the ring and flips him over onto his side before making it look like the referee pulled him off. He's putting him in the recovery position, which is not a bad thing to do. Do you think that was the right thing to do in that situation, or considering the fact that Enzo could have had a broken neck, was this the wrong thing to do?
I think it's hard to speculate, because that literally, I got the sense looking at it, that was a very split-second decision. There wasn't a lot of time between Enzo falling out and Simon Gotch doing that. Yeah,
I mean, I would love to know backstage what the consensus was on that action, because for me, I mean, obviously, if the guy, the whole reason you flip them over into that position is for their own safety, so they don't swallow their tongue or anything else. But if the neck was broken, that could have been fatal. So I don't know. It was a crazy moment.
I'll be honest, guys. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen in wrestling.
Yeah.
And I've seen, some pretty bad things. I mean, I think of, obviously, rest in peace, Hayabusa and his injury. I also got to think about Perro Aguayo. I mean, are we all on the same boat that was very reminiscent of the Perro Aguayo death video?
Yes.
Yeah. I do.
Right. I think it's one of those things that from going forward, I don't think he would have gotten in too much trouble. Maybe he did. Maybe we'll hear, as we get more information, that he did get, a stern talking to or got a browbeating or whatever because of what he did. But I think it may be something moving forward where they may have to have some kind of protocol about what exactly the talent is to do. But like Sean said, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it was 100% spur of the moment, much like with Conan and Perro Aguayo. I mean, I don't think he had any clue that it could have been a broken neck at that time. To be honest, the Enzo injury looked worse than the Perro injury.
Yeah, the Perro injury
physically.
Yeah, the Perro injury sort of played out as he got up, right? I mean, if I can
with Conan being the ringside and automatically, trying to wake him up and lift his head and stuff like that. It's very similar. It's just you're in the spur of the moment. You can't judge it. from the outside. It's just you got to be there in that moment when that panic sets in, and you do crazy things.
Yeah,
sometimes the wrong thing.
And you said that they really do need to have a protocol going forward from this point forward. I kind of wish they'd had a protocol ahead of time. It really seems like something that maybe should have been covered. And maybe it's really just left up to the referee, and maybe, Simon stepping in and doing what he did was out of line with that. But still, as you said, it was spur of the moment. You can't blame anybody. I know some fans were critical of Simon Gotch, but do you guys feel like it was his fault? I didn't really feel as though he did anything wrong, but the injury itself occurring is what I mean.
Again, you can't judge people what they do in panic situations. Every one of us have been in some kind of situation where where all of a sudden life is normal, and then in a split second life is the complete opposite of normal. And I wouldn't want anyone judging me and how I react in that moment. So I don't know. It's hard. Sure. It's pretty hard to judge.
Yeah, but I'm saying the actual move that injured him himself. It looked like a freak accident to me.
Oh yeah. It looked like it was more on Enzo's part than anybody.
Yeah,
you could say maybe that there was
before.
Right. Yeah. I just think it was just a positioning thing. I mean, I hate to use the old cliche. This ain't ballet, Even though in ballet people get hurt all the time too, so that's actually pretty.
Well,
stupid.
can I bring up a little point I noticed with that match and the Baron Corbin match on the pre-show too? Did anybody notice the rope seemed really stiff?
Mm-hmm. I was actually thinking that when they showed the replay, that it looked bad. Maybe I'm just not really knowledgeable enough to be able to make the comparison, but I certainly did think, gosh, that was a stiff-looking cable when he hit that.
Well, and that's the right word. It's a cable.
Yeah.
It's steel.
We call it a rope, but it's not.
No, but I think...
No, it's...
I think in the Corbin match, too, they were supposed to do the spot where Corbin goes over the rope and he just kind of bounced off the rope and fell flat on his face. But,
that's interesting.
And it looked like the rope didn't give the cable didn't really give as much as it normally does either.
Look, coming out of this, we certainly have to wait for more news on Enzo, but somebody that has certainly stepped up in his absence is Big Cass. I don't think anyone really quite expected Cass, who's sat back and let Enzo do the talking, to be able to kind of step forward and project himself as a solo character, which can only be good for him. And you have to expect that Vince is in the back drooling over a 7-footer, who's starting to show his charisma like this. What did you think of Cass's performance on Raw?
I think they put him out there to do a good thing, and he performed well, and they put him with a group that was going to be over. He hung out with New Day, that's not a negative.
Yeah. It's still weird for me to see New Day being straight up baby faces. I love it. I'm not saying it that I don't love it, but still to me, it's still like, wow, they're faces and it still works. This is really great, So
yeah, we didn't bring up. Sorry, Sham. We didn't bring up the fact too about the New Day were at ringside when that horrible injury happened, and right on the camera side where that injury took place, and it was pretty jarring to watch them sitting there trying to still be the New Day. You kind of had like Big E in the middle, almost looked like he was stress eating. Like he just was eating that pizza because it was almost like he didn't know what else to do at that moment.
Yeah.
Kofi Kingston kind of had this stunned look on his face, and then you had Xavier there just looking straight up concerned.
Yeah, it
was interesting to see them. They're usually so on and so in character, but in that moment, it was pretty hard to keep that act going.
And you had to know what was going through their minds. Obviously anybody in this line of work knows the risks. And, as you mentioned, Perro Aguayo, and we've heard of a lot of other people, either, being put into a situation where their careers ended or their life ended. So you can imagine what was going through their minds and going through the minds of everybody in the back. It must have been a terrible moment for everybody. I was happy to see, before the end of the night, Kevin Owens had posted a photo with himself and Enzo and Cass at the hospital, with Enzo up having a chat with Cass. That to me set everything at ease. You got to love Kevin Owens for documenting that.
Those guys are really close too.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed too. Sorry, go ahead, Luke.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing I noticed too. When guys get hurt normally on WB, they don't give multiple updates in a night.
Yeah.
The announcers gave like 3 or 4 updates.
I think that was in response to how much coverage they'd shown of it before they found out what was wrong with them. I think that was just kind of soothing the fans back into, that was a horrible moment. We shouldn't have maybe made it quite as public and in such detail, and kind of making sure everybody knew that he was all right. I was certainly concerned, but thank goodness he's all right.
Yeah, to weigh in on Big Cass's performance on Monday, too. I mean, that guy, he's not the worst promo in the world. He's actually getting pretty good. And, again, it was pretty upsetting to watch him at ringside, too, seeing his tag team partner down there and not knowing very much.
He was literally crying on camp.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's 100% real because they weren't letting him in there. The medical personnel was there, and they were, nobody could get close to him. And so you don't know anything. You don't know if you're on camera here watching your friend pass away. You have no idea. So anyway, thankfully that didn't happen.
If Enzo's all right and they want to play up this injury as something that vaudevillains are proud of, I'm fine with that for the heel heat. But thank goodness for Enzo. Let's send that out. I'm sure he listens to this show. So Enzo, please get better. Please get back soon.
He steals his rhymes from me, dude.
What's that?
he steals his rhymes from me.
You shouldn't throw
You've heard
things...
his theme song.
I know, but you shouldn't throw those things around lightly. Lucy in the legal department's already starting to be chomping at the bit. She's writing up the papers right now. Leave Enzo alone. Leave him. He's got enough trouble.
Yeah. And can I praise the vaudevillains, at least since they've got to main roster, that Aiden English has started randomly singing Broadway again, which is so entertaining.
They're a funny, they're such a weird gimmick, and it's hard to get them, but once you get them, you gotta love them, and I really do love them. I hope that they continue to do well. Look, let's move along to the next order of business here. I want to talk about Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who I think from what you and I talked about, Luke, I think we were in agreement that these guys were the match of the night, in a night that had some good matches. At Payback, the thing that really impressed me about this is that they've not kind of diminished their history in NXT whatsoever. I'm talking about the office and the creative and the announcers. They've really pushed the fact that these guys were in a heated feud that was never really resolved in NXT, and it's carried over to be just as hot in WWE. What do you guys think about them making use of this history in NXT and treating it like real, legitimate, archival WWE history?
Is that something that's more understanding what your current fan base is? And it's understanding that it's it's a hardcore fan, and you got to think, B, it's also selling your network. It's saying, look, this feud started on NXT. NXT is over here on our network that we want more subscribers for. Buy it. It becomes a commercial for the network too.
I suppose it does.
Well, and I'm sure that they want to reach a point where all of the history of guys before they showed up in WWE is their own stuff. You can use as much as you possibly have of the video footage that you already own to tell the story of the history of these guys before they even showed up. I mean, that's what a monopoly is, really, when you think about it.
But, I was just impressed by the fact that NXT has become commonplace reference now in WWE, and not just as some cute little, if you haven't seen it, blah, blah, blah. This is really the basis behind this storyline is coming right out of NXT. What did you think of the match itself?
They don't have bad matches.
Exactly. They don't have bad matches.
Yeah. You grade Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens on a different scale. Yes. You've already started up in around the 7, 8s, 9s when you're grading a Sami Zayn Kevin Owens match. It's only a matter of if you decide you're going to give them an 11 or a 12 or a 10. I love these guys. I love the fact that Owens went over relatively clean. But they certainly haven't ended the feud. In fact, they've set things kind of in motion for it to continue, but revolving around the IC title. What do you guys think of this? And we'll get into the Miz and Cesaro match that happened in a little bit, but what do you guys think of this idea of throwing multiple guys at around the same level into a feud for one belt? I mean, that's sort of become a bit more commonplace lately, but what do you think about Cesaro, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, The Miz, and whoever else they happen to come up with, all competing for the title?
Okay, I like it with a couple of exceptions. Or at least one major exception. It always leads to a fatal four-way match or something.
Yeah.
I'm getting kind of sick of them. I want to see one guy fight the champion, and then somebody else fight the champion, and somebody else fight the champion. Don't put all four of them in one match. Don't burn it.
I don't think they can resist the urge to do it, but I wouldn't. I'm with you to the point that I wouldn't have that be the culmination or the highlights of it. Throw them together every once in a while. But yeah, I love the idea of one champion having to struggle against 3 top contenders in sequence coming after him again and again. To me, that's kind of exciting. I don't know if Miz is the guy to do that. I'd almost rather it was on Owens or Sami Zayn and have them fighting off these other challenges. But as it stands right now, they've got an interesting mix of 4 guys, at least at this point, and an interesting mix of styles. Luke, did you have anything to say?
I like the idea of multiple people being in the title picture. I like the idea of guys in their promos making it clear what title it is that they're going after. I think that's one of those things in UFC that's so great. I'm not a huge UFC fan, but I do watch, sometimes. And I always love when guys after their fights will say, so-and-so, whatever weight division they're in, I'm coming for that belt. Even if that fight has not necessarily been booked or this guy isn't even the number one contender, he's already making it clear. He's staking his claims, you know what I mean? So I like that idea of multiple guys, the Cesaros, the Miz, whoever, making it clear in their promos what title they're looking at and what they're zeroing in on with their career. But I don't like Sean said, I don't like all of these multi-man matches very much. I mean, now and then is okay, but WWE just overdoes them. They do them way too much.
They make them inconsequential, and it's more in that we're going to get a bunch of guys in a match for the show, and we're going to. It's not the culmination of anything. It's not leading towards
Exactly.
weeding anybody out. It's just sort of a stopping point or a midpoint in the feud. So I would like to see them continue with these 4 guys. When the dust clears, I don't know who of those 4 guys has got the belt. I have no complaints about Miz and Maurice. What do you guys think?
Maurice makes it better and makes Miz look like a better heel somehow, which I didn't think anybody'd be able to do, but she does it.
I would even go one step further and say that this is the best Miz we've ever seen.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is Miz in the role that suits him. Being the main event badass babyface, or heel, I guess he was not babyface, the main event heel world champion badass, that certainly did not fit him. And this role does to me, and I think there's a lot more realism in it. Not to say he's a stuck-up Hollywood type or anything like that, and far from it. But, he's got his wife there, and he is involved. And he is a guy that can go on to pretty much any show in the mainstream media. He'll get up early, he'll do the radio, and he can pretty much get over with anyone and present the company really well. So I understand Miz in this role, and I do actually like it, and the idea of him being the big baller and stuff like that. So I don't mind. I think this is the best Miz we've ever seen, actually, and he's in the right role.
I agree with you there, too, and I think that Miz has built his stock very quietly over several years to the point now that I think he's set with WWE. I don't think he's ever going to have any trouble because, Absolutely. As you said, he holds a value that very few people on the roster do in that he can step out and meet the media on kind of any level, either in character, out of character, comedy, serious, whatever. And still relate well and still reflect well on the WWE. And they just don't have a lot of guys that are that well spoken and that well accepted. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and that's what I was going to say. I agree completely. I think, and that's why he'll have a job forever.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, the other reason is the fact that he's so willing. You won't hear him complain. Like he's notorious for that. He'll take on anything you want to give him in terms of media and promoting the company. So they love a guy like that. He's going to go out there. He's not going to say anything to get himself in trouble. He's going to 100% toe the company line, much to my, dismay a lot of the time. But at the same time, you got to respect the guy and you got to understand why he's going to be there forever because of the fact that everything you guys said and the fact that he's so willing to do whatever they want to throw at him.
Yeah, exactly. Look, let's talk about the other guy in that equation in the IC title match, Miz's IC title match, Cesaro. We've been waiting for him to come back. He's been hot and cold, up and down. The creative has never followed through with him. He seems like a different Cesaro now. Not only has he seemed to have stepped up his in-ring, but the character's really starting to come together. This sort of
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The kind of hitman type character. I like it, and I love seeing him kind of be embraced by the crowd the way that he was before. I thought he really picked up his game at Payback. What were your reflections on Cesaro?
Again, somebody that I don't know who you put him in there with to have a bad match, and if they can ever get behind whatever character they want him to do, so much money to be made there.
I agree. He brings something.
He's certainly over with the people, that's for sure.
He's over with the people. He brings something unique, not just in his look, but he has a legacy behind him, kind of a mystique about him now. The fact that, despite the fact that he looks super fit, He's not a big musclehead, and yet, has had these huge feats of strength. He's a guy you never quite know what to expect from him other than the fact that it's going to be high quality. He's kind of fast, explosive, strong. I'm excited to see where things go, and let's hope to God they're going to keep this push up, just to at least see where it goes. I mean, that's all I care about. Let's see where it can go. Go ahead.
He could easily be one of the guys that if the offense gets cold on him, the fans could resurrect him real quick.
Yeah, I agree with that. But we've seen it happen so many times that I think with Cesaro, that's not enough. They need to believe in him, and they need to see the value of a guy. I mean, I don't know what's not to like about him. He's got a cool accent. He's dynamite in the ring. I would love to see him.
Vince would like.
You'd think that, but
speaks multiple languages. Use this guy to his fullest potential and see what happens. I mean, there are guys that I love and I want to see them do well, and when they don't, I get frustrated. But nothing frustrates me more than when there's a guy I want to see do well, and they use about 20% of his potential and then declare him a failure. Cesaro's been one of those guys, so let's hope that's not what happens. Alberto Del Rio.
Alberto Del Rio.
Looking at you, yeah.
That's true. Del Rio. I mean, when he first came back, it seemed like we were going to get more. And maybe now that League of Nations is split, we'll see a bit more out of him. But, let's keep our fingers crossed for Del Rio again. One other thing I want to talk about, well, several other things, but the next thing I want to talk to you about regarding Payback was the Jericho-Ambrose match. Now, this match I really enjoyed. It's between, two great talkers, two intense guys in the ring. My concern going into this match was that Jericho was going to be heading off sometime soon. The match itself was good, but seems to be the door seems to be open for it to continue. Where do you guys think this is going? And being the insiders you are, have you heard how much longer Chris Jericho is going to be around?
I know that he did put something out on Monday afternoon saying that pretty much hinting that his run was over, but that's not true. He was just doing the usual Chris Jericho thing where whatever he says is the opposite. So, we've come to expect that with Jericho. He's actually booked for the next little while, and he's going to be at Extreme Rules facing Ambrose again. Going after Extreme Rules, I don't know. Yeah, you're right, Sean. I think that's what I heard too. SummerSlam. So I think Jericho's around until SummerSlam. Not sure if he's gonna remain in this program. As far as the match, I thought Owens and Sami Zayn was a hard act to follow. I thought that they really tore it down, and they were in the horrible position too of having to follow the Enzo scare. And for the first half of that match, the crowd was not with them. And then by the time the second part of the match and third part of the match kicked into high gear, everything was really working out really good, and the crowd was super into it. For this match, it just felt like maybe they might have been in a bad spot in that standpoint and having Owens and Sammy go before them. But I still thought it was very solid, very good match. It's been a bit of a strange storyline, I think, going forward. Sean, what do you think?
I think it's been completely. I'm happy to see Ambrose get a clean win on pay-per-view. That was kind of good.
Yeah.
But that was also the match that I felt after the Enzo thing happened. I have a sense they went to Jericho and Ambrose and said, "Okay, you guys have 10 more minutes than you originally had."
I can see where that would occur to you. Yeah, it may have been the case too. It had to be made up somewhere. The thing about this match that I liked so much was that the match itself was fun. It was intense and whatnot, but they really defined these two characters and put two great talkers together. This, I think, not just the win, but I think that the feud in general has been really good for Dean Ambrose, and I would love to see it continue. Just because I think the more he works with Jericho, the better he looks.
And then on Monday, Stephanie ruined it.
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. I've got a note here. We're going to talk in length about all the things that Stephanie's ruining. Look, something else I want to talk about here. We had Natalya and Charlotte in their big match with Bret Hart at ringside. Bret Hart at ringside looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, and Ric Flair at ringside looking like he actually was somewhere else. The match played out. I think it was a good women's match. I feel a little bit like the quality of matches, at least the time they're giving them and the creative they're giving them, has dropped off a bit since Mania. But the finish, do we ever need to see anything else with the word screwjob in it relating to a heart?
No. I don't know how else to follow that.
So now we've got a Chicago screwjob. So now are we going to forget about Montreal and it's always going to be the Chicago screwjob? What's happening?
Oh, hell no.
I think we all know what this was, don't we?
Yeah, I think so.
It's called "Don't Talk So Much Shit in the Press." I mean, it's Brett being Brett, which we love him for and we praise him for on this show. And Brett, keep it going. I know I don't need to tell you to because you're going to anyways. But we've talked about this on the show for a while, Sean and Shan, about Brett can talk as much shit as he wants in the press about Hunter and everything that they're doing wrong. But Vince, whether it's out of guilt, whether it's out of, well, who knows what, Vince will always invite Brett back. And if Vince invites you, it doesn't matter what the relationship is with Triple H or with Stephanie or with anyone else. But, I mean, Brett has been very outspoken about the direction of the company. He has a podcast now. He completely shit on WrestleMania.
Yes,
and
he did.
if you're in, I think there's a lot of people out there that are saying, okay, well, if the idea was to just bring Brett in and stick it to Brett one more time, then why did Brett come at all? Why did he do it? Why was he willing to do it? It's a bad situation for Brett because it involves his niece. And if Brett doesn't come, they gave this girl a farting gimmick a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
I do.
You know, can you imagine being in his situation? It's your niece, and you know that if you don't come, or if, you know, you walk out of the creative when they tell you they're going to do a screw job, that she's fucked.
Yeah.
So call me a conspiracy theorist. It seems pretty obvious to me.
And of course
Writing's on the wall.
They did it well enough that it was Charles Robinson was the referee, and then on Monday night, they showed the clips of Charles Robinson being Little Nate in WCW. So they laid all the cards in.
Right. And it wasn't like a full-on screw job like before or anything like that. It's not like a situation where it was super malicious. It's just more of one of those little jabbing, we hold the cards, don't ever forget it kind of things. Because they did give Brett, you know, the sharpshooter afterwards. They did try to make it a feel-good, get your baby face fire back at the end. But, I mean, to do that to Brett again, they're still doing it. We'll bring you back. We'll have your niece get screwed. Like, I mean, they know he's not going to like that.
What did you think of the match itself?
Not as good as the last match in Toronto and not as good, nearly as good as the NXT match, but still solid.
Yeah,
well, nothing's
solid.
going to compare to the NXT match, though.
Yeah. They got two solid players here. And as I said, I feel like women's wrestling, just in general, has dropped off a bit since Mania. Just their week-to-week stuff, they haven't really been giving them what they gave them before. But I have a question. Where is Sasha Banks? Where can she be?
That's a good question, because you know what? I don't know the answer to that either.
Good Lord. The girl had the intro at Mania with Snoop Dogg, and the fans were mental for her, and she seems to be MIA. Has there been any talk? Is she in trouble? Is she, injured?
Well, she was on the pay-per-view. They did that little backstage thing with
so she was
Stephanie.
there.
Well,
Stephanie was there and interviewing her. And that was just, I guess, more of this storyline of they're each going to be recruiting people. They had, was it Shane with Apollo?
Yeah.
It was Shane with Apollo and Stephanie with Sasha, I think.
Right. So, again, she's around. I know there was that concussion. I think she had a concussion issue a while back, too, didn't she? Not too long ago.
Oh, yes, that's
Or was that before WrestleMania? I don't remember.
That's right, too. Well, here's what I find interesting, too. They brought Emma up and put her in a feud with Becky. It's almost like they took all the Total Divas girls and have completely separated it from this new crop of girls, and there's almost now not enough women to have matches.
I'm all for Emma. I feel a little sorry for Becky. She seems to have taken a step down since Mania, but again, it seems a little bit like they've lost control of the pecking order in WWE for the women's title now. I guess there's no real lack of actual talent, but they do need to kind of stack things up a little better to have some more competitive matchups. But that being said, no problem with Natty and Charlotte. I'd like to see them do it again, just without Brett and Flair there. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is probably going to keep us busy for a little bit, AJ Styles. Now, let's zip back in time to before the Royal Rumble. Would you have imagined AJ Styles being in the main event of a WWE pay-per-view, putting on a show like that against a guy who people are generally underwhelmed by, putting on a great match, although, okay, the match itself was great, all the theatrics I was not too fond of, and we'll get into that in a moment, and being in the middle of one of the top storylines right now with the Anderson Gallows stuff. Would anybody have seen this coming in December?
Could anybody have seen this coming on January the 3rd, 2016?
That's true.
Very true. I don't think we could have seen it coming the day after the Royal Rumble.
It's true, you know, guys. I mean, we all know who AJ is.
Sorry.
Is this the anonymous general manager calling in?
Okay, hang on.
President Rush Donahue.
Oh, Rush has
A
sent
not so anonymous email.
He sent us his grocery list and his dry cleaning order. Rush, come on. Not when we're on the air. Look, AJ Styles, if I'm going to get back to this, AJ Styles, we all know who AJ is. We know what he's capable of. We know that in any, regardless of where he was at the top of the card as far as talent goes. He always puts on great matches. My fear was always that WWE wouldn't see him as a top tier player, and they wouldn't see him as a main event player, and that they wouldn't see him as the right kind of face or the right kind of performer to go against their top guy who they're trying to quote-unquote protect or continue to push despite muddy fan reaction. All that kind of fell away at Payback and in the in the build to Payback and in the post-Payback. What did you guys think of the match in general?
Overbooked.
Sean, you were there. Sorry, I thought we lost you. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. I felt the AJ and Roman thing was way overbooked.
It was. That's what I'm talking about with the theatrics. Yeah. Yeah, let's just meld these two topics together because this was going to be my next topic. Once again, the McMahons have stepped in and managed to derail the focus of what the product should be. I know that we've talked about this before, but they have it in their minds that when things aren't good, the answer is to have as many people with the last name McMahon on screen as possible. I think this is a mistake. I don't think anybody there really has the draw they think they do, although Shane is still a novelty, and I like Shane. This match went from actually being a great match if you cut out all the nonsense to kind of being a little bit diluted and muddled simply because of Shane and Stephanie getting into this little one-upmanship. Which continued on to Raw the next night. My reflection on the match is always those great moments. I mean, what I really loved about this match was how much AJ was allowed to shine and how much Roman took to soaking up that heel heat instead of trying to ignore it. I'm not happy with where Roman is right now. I still don't think it's the right thing to do to keep him face or whatever he's supposed to be now. What would you call what Roman is now? I mean, now that they're acknowledging it, and he's sort of a tweener, but not cool enough to be a tweener. I don't know.
Oh, it's a character like, I guess, it's similar to John Cena in the way that it's the company saying, you people all boo this, and you think that this sucks, but you actually suck. You think we don't know what we're doing, but we think that you don't know what you're talking about. That's what Roman Reigns is. That's what the character is.
This is the feud with the fans again.
Yeah. This is just Vince's feud with the fans. This has been the biggest feud, the feud of the year for many years now, guys.
Yep. And it's hard to
no,
watch.
He's not. I don't know that he is a tweener, although maybe on Monday you could say that he slightly was venturing into tweener territory there with the powerbomb at the end. If you don't mind me talking about this match for a minute and sort of everything Shan just said.
Oh, yeah, let's just meld it all together.
I just felt watching the match very proud for AJ Styles. Not that I'm his father, but I'm a guy that's watched him for a long time. And I mean, this was, to go back to AJ's old stomping ground, this was NWA TNA level of overbooking happening here in this match. But as far as the performance, watching that match, I did get the impression that Vince McMahon's probably pretty high on AJ Styles. I feel like this guy, you could say maybe Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan's a different kind of guy. I was going to say AJ Styles, this was like the best main event performance despite the booking, but performance, a spectacular main event performance since Shawn Michaels. And Daniel Bryan, to me, is a different kind of performance. It's almost more of a Bret Hart performance than a Shawn Michaels. So when I watched this, I did get the impression that the company was high on AJ, and I didn't see it coming, but I'm glad it did happen, and I'm glad that he's getting another main event against Roman at the next pay-per-view. So, we can sort of look at the booking and all the Shane and Stephanie stuff, which I completely agree. At the end of that match, as spectacular as it was, and Roman held up his end of the bargain, may have been his best match, if not, maybe second best after the Daniel match. I'd say maybe this, if it had have been not so overbooked, would have been Roman's best match. But I felt like the Shane and Stephanie stuff at the end was 100% the focus. Not AJ, not Roman, just more of this McMahon family nonsense, which, like you say, they always are going back to this. But the other problem, too, is that USA is constantly in their ears saying more McMahons. Kevin Dunn is constantly saying, "We need more McMahons." So
yeah, so it's the people making the decisions.
You've got all these people. It's not just Vince and Stephanie and Hunter saying more McMahons. It's everyone around them, all the decision makers, saying the same thing. So it's just awful. It's just this company's never going to have its next boom period. It's never going to turn around in terms of ratings with more of this McMahon shit.
I almost wonder if it's more of the people who pay the money for the show saying want the McMahons more than the McMahons. I get the vibe from watching the television that Vince and Shane, specifically, really have no desire to be out there on TV.
Well, with Vince, he's said for years that he thinks he's too old to be on TV, and he constantly writes himself out of TV. But at the same time, when everyone's encouraging you to come back and that's what's going to save ratings and all this, I'm sure he gets a sick, satisfaction out of that.
Well, no, and I understand, but I'm saying, but how quickly does he tend to write himself out? Like, he'll be there for
how many times?
weeks. Yeah. Whereas I think the only one that actually wants to be there in front of the camera is Stephanie.
A little
one
too
that nobody
much.
wants.
She's the one nobody wants. My answer to that is give Stephanie her own show. Say, Stephanie, you can have your own show, and it's just Stephanie being Stephanie, but with the understanding that she can't be on any other show. And let's just see how that does. Let's just see how the ratings go for the Stephanie show. Just getting back to AJ for a minute, the comparison you made to Shawn Michaels is about the fairest one you can make right now, because AJ has that exact same quality that Shawn had, in that he could go in and find a way to get a good match out of anybody, and he would find out what their strengths were and push those strengths in the match. AJ has that exact same quality to him, and we've seen it, over, as I said, over all these different organizations he's competed in against all talents. I really can't remember looking back and seeing a bad AJ Styles match, at least where AJ didn't do everything he could given the what he was presented with.
The thing is too. Sorry, I was just going to interrupt and say that the thing with AJ too is that he's actually at his best right now. People look back on his earlier career; he did a lot more in his matches. He had all kinds of spectacular stuff he was doing. The AJ Styles in 2016, though, is much more tasteful about how he puts his stuff together. And he may do half of the high spots that he did back then, but everything makes so much sense. He tells a great story, and it's like just the Shawn matches too. Everything with Shawn, it was a logical match. It was a good story being told from beginning to end. But when it was over, you felt like you had seen a spectacle, and that's what this match was. In terms of AJ's performance.
I agree, and I think that if the plan is to keep AJ in the top mix, you'll be able to go through the list of anybody else that's in that ranking near the top and pull out some great matches. It's great for AJ. It's going to be great for them. He made Roman look like $1 million. Anytime that Roman and AJ have been in there together so far, he made Roman look like $1 million. So that's what they need. Keep this feud going. If they really intend to keep pushing Roman down our throats, this is a decent way to do it. In relation to this, we have Gallows and Anderson. And, they're still playing out this angle where we don't quite know where they sit with AJ. Where do you think this is going, guys? Have you had any hint of whether this is really going to be AJ and the Bullet Club reforming, or is there a swerve coming up?
I don't know.
Again, I don't know.
Does it not seem to change almost show to show?
Yeah. They're keeping us a little off balance, but I love it. I can't let you guys talk about it anymore before just chiming in and saying I love this angle, and I love that you don't know where it's going. And I don't think it's been something. I don't think it's been something week to week where it's like that old or the new WWE thing where they just are changing their minds week to week. I just feel like they actually are telling a story with some twists and turns, and they're keeping you guessing more than just one pay-per-view's worth of television. So I just got to say I love it. I love it too, and like the missing piece in this is Balor, but I think we've heard that Balor is getting his rematch against Joe at the next. Is it at the next Takeover event or? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, so I mean he's going to be there at least either doing double duty or whatever for the next little while. So I mean I'm fine with them continuing on with this. I like the fact that Anderson and Gallows are still playing the heels and AJ's playing the face. I don't know how all three of those two come together into one unified group if the attitudes all stay the same, but it is interesting to see. Loving Anderson and Gallows, Loving all the stuff that they've been doing lately. And I haven't seen, SmackDown doesn't air until tomorrow, but I know that they're in the ring with six-man with Roman again, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with those guys. We got one other thing to talk about here, guys, and it's our old buddy Ryback. And you know I'm a big fan of Ryback. Well, I mean, when I say a big fan, I've always found him entertaining, and I felt like he had a bit more to offer than what he was given. You guys have read his blog?
Yes.
The news right
Definitely.
now is that Ryback is in a contract dispute. He's asked to be taken off TV. He doesn't feel like the money that's being offered to him is fair, and he published a very emotional, very heartfelt blog talking about the issues that he sees in wrestling right now, one of which being that since wrestling is predetermined, why doesn't everybody just start with the same base salary, seeing as the guys who lose only lose in order to put the other guys over, with all the perks and the extra money coming out of merchandising, etc., etc. Before we talk about it too much, what were your overall thoughts about Ryback going this route to air his grievances, and what do you think about what he said? Do you agree, disagree? What are your comments?
I'm gonna preface by saying I don't completely understand how wrestling pay scale works. I will say this: I do get a sense of Ryback seems to care about wrestling and wants to be a wrestler, but I almost wonder if he just kind of wants out of WWE. I wonder if this is his way of trying to get fired. That's what I took from that.
What do you think, Luke?
Well, I have to applaud the man, of course, because this company gets away with a lot of things. I think if people knew everything that they got away with, they would be pretty shocked. But of course, things are a lot better right now than they've probably ever been in terms of the health of the guys, in terms of taking concussions seriously, all that stuff. But in terms of the pay and the way that these guys are paid, and to the best of my knowledge, there's still never been a network meeting with the talent about how they're getting paid. So it's still all been kept so shady. The fact that these guys are labeled as independent contractors, hardly a rumor monger. Lance Storm was kind of public a few years back talking about how he wasn't even given the proper papers when he had to file his taxes, and he told them that he was an independent contractor when he first started working with WWE. They weren't even the right papers. The fact that this company lies. In the stock meetings, they lie. They'll give worked attendance numbers. They'll give exaggerated subscription numbers. They do all kinds of shady shit. And for Ryback to think that he's trying to get fired for this, I mean, that's kind of the first, the sort of gut reaction I think most people have when they read it. What I found interesting today was the fact that Ariane Andrews, also known as Cameron, that's still her name in WWE, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, commented on that post and wrote, "Amen, brother."
Yeah.
If you think Ryback's the only guy in that locker room that feels the way he expressed in that Tumblr blog, I mean, don't fool yourself. I'm sure there's a lot of guys in that company right now that are saying good for him.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Like, what do you think about this whole notion that everyone starts out the same and you get your cuts depending on how popular you are through your merchandising, etc.? And here's what I'll bring up to you, because this is sort of, I guess I'm asking a couple different questions here, or at least putting out a couple of different topics for discussion. Back when the Daniel Bryan surge was coming, and everyone was getting crazy about Daniel Bryan, and WWE wasn't really doing anything with him, and there kept being all this talk about how, Bryan doesn't move merchandise, and Cena moves so much merchandise. We went to a show in Toronto where, despite the fact that Daniel Bryan wasn't there, the entire crowd was chanting Daniel Bryan and shouting, "Yes, yes." And when you went and looked at the merchandising that was available for Daniel Bryan, you found that there was about 6 John Cena shirts of all high quality, and there was one really crappy Daniel Bryan shirt. And from that point on, it took a long time before they started producing merchandise that anyone would even want to buy unless they were a Daniel Bryan fan. So if you're going to judge guys by how much merchandise they move for you. Is it only fair that you really put out a decent amount of merchandise for people to buy before you decide? Because it always seemed a little fixed to me. It was like, oh, no one's buying the Brian shirts. Well, it's because it's got like a cartoon picture of a goat on it, and this other one just has a picture of a wrestling ring, and they all looked really crappy. So for starters, I mean, I just want to talk about that notion that, what do you guys think about, if the merchandising game is rigged to put the guys they want over? And also, what do you think about this idea that a top star will make more money off of merchandising and shouldn't get it through their contract?
Isn't that the way wrestling's worked forever anyway?
Well, it is. That is exactly it. That's exactly the way it's always worked. But
that's also what he said. He even referenced that. He said that just because that's the way it's always been doesn't mean it's right. This is one of those real wake-up calls, I think, to the fans and to a lot of people that, we have this roster nowadays. It's basically everything that the McMahons have ever wanted. It's everything Vince has ever wanted, because none of these guys, for the most part, you may have now and then have an occasion when it happens, but for the most part, 99.9 of the time, none of these guys are complaining about finishes anymore. It's not the era of I can't job because, it will hurt my brand and I'm not going to be able to, work other places and stuff like that. The old school mentality. The Bruiser Brody, what would Bruiser Brody do? How many territories did he screw over because he felt like, they were trying to somehow compromise his interests? So we have this idea now that it's a bunch of guys who don't care about winning and losing, and that's what they'll always feed you. Well, it's not about who wins and loses. Actually, you know what? It is. Because when you do a job and you do a job and you do a job and you do a job over and over again, guess what? Your value does go down. And then when they try to renegotiate your contract, which is what spawned this whole thing, they're going to give you an offer that's, lower than what you're making now, even though you've been working just as hard. Now you're telling me that because of those creative decisions you made that I deserve a lesser amount of money?
I agree with you there.
That's where wrestling is completely fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and part of it there too is the fact that they're holding the monopoly. There really isn't anywhere else to go. If you want to get that kind of main event exposure, you really need to do it through WWE these days. There's no other alternative. So, the other question here that keeps popping into my head, as much as I like the idea of people starting out with a base salary and moving forward, how do you attract people into your company if another organization was to pop up and was in competition with you? How do you play that game? If you go out, you're going to get the same as everybody else. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like the points that he made, and he certainly has shed some light on stuff that's going on. And yes, if they're controlling your destiny and the choices that they're making are resulting in a lower paycheck for you, you certainly should be able to speak out on it. The bottom line on the whole thing, though, is I don't really know what the options are. I don't know what the alternative is.
Yeah, and it's like, look at a guy like Sami Zayn, right? Yeah. And obviously Ryback's not Sami Zayn. But Sami Zayn is going out there and he's doing the job and he's putting everybody over. But his matches are incredible, right? Yeah. They're the talk of the show. Like look at the Nakamura match from NXT. That was the entire talk of all of WrestleMania weekend. And I think everybody said that's their match of the entire weekend in terms of WWE's shows that they put on. So it's like you have a guy like him who's going to end up making less money later down the line because he's gone out there and he's been a lower level talent. He hasn't been the main event talent or even the guy that's getting put over. I just think that's so crazy. It's like a good match is a good match, whether you win or you lose. If I lose 10 matches in a row, but they're good matches and I'm making the guy look good and I'm doing my job and I'm not complaining, why on earth would I make less money when my contract comes up,
I agree.
Anyway, it's a complicated thing, but you guys know how I feel about it now.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I tend to agree on this too. I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out. I don't expect there's going to be an awful lot of changes. In fact, the only change I think we will see is probably less of Ryback. But I do wish him well. I like that he's outspoken on this, and I like that he's brought it to our attention. Listen, guys, do we have anything?
Where does he go?
What?
Where does he go?
Where does he go? That's true. But I mean, in his blog,
WWE?
Maybe not into wrestling. Like I don't think Ryback's performance strengths necessarily relate to wrestling. We've heard him on commentary. I think he's a relatively funny guy. He's got a great look. I'm sure he could get into acting if he needed to. I'm sure there's other things for him to do. I don't know that he goes off to any of the more serious wrestling. I mean, can you see Ryback in Ring of Honor? Can you see Ryback wrestling in New Japan? Seriously?
You know what? I think they would lose their minds at the opportunity to have him.
Oh, I think they would too. I just don't know.
It's a matter of is he interested?
Yeah, and is his performance level going to work there? In New Japan, I think they would use him. I mean, the way that they've used Michael Elgin, Elgin's a much, much better wrestler, but I think that they would like to have a guy who's sort of the North American monster come in, and Ryback, I'm sure, could play that part. But good luck to him.
Because they love having guys from WWE come in there. That's still looked at as the major leagues. That's the worldwide leagues, you know. As much as Japan, New Japan is number one in Japan, everybody still knows that the worldwide big leagues is WWE. So when you have a guy come in that's had so much WWE TV exposure, and he comes into New Japan, even if he's not the best performer necessarily, and Ryback is a totally decent performer. He's decent. And going in there working with really great guys, I think he could look at Bad Luck Fale. He's been there for years now.
That's
I think
true.
They would love having Ryback. I think that they'd love having a WWE guy that's had so much exposure. And who knows, they could probably revamp his career. It's all a matter if he's willing to go and how much money would make it worth it for Ryback.
Yeah.
Can he get a better offer from them than WWE? That's what it comes down to. So
it sounds like it at this moment anyway. I mean, I don't know what the details are, but it sounds like if he's unhappy about money, that might be the opportunity. And I believe his contract is up in the summer, so we're coming up on it. I believe. Was it June?
It's going to be a rocky couple months.
I think it's going to be. Yeah, I think it's going to be, especially if he's sitting out off TV all this time. But good luck to Ryback. Listen, guys, is there anything else we want to talk about before we close down for the night?
Well, actually, before we go, Sean, you and I will be at the Ted Reeves Arena next Wednesday. And we'll be providing a bonus episode of War Weekly where we review the live experience of the Ring of Honor TV tapings from Toronto Ted Reeves Arena. Shotgun Shan will do a show with me next week as well, our usual scheduled vintage update. And it's going to be quite the busy week in Warland next week. But I just wanted to say I did watch, and I'm still watching. I took a little bit of a pause to do this show. I'm going to get back to it now. I was watching Wrestling Dontaku from New Japan Pro Wrestling, big show that happened Tuesday morning, late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, depending on where you are. And just wanted to quickly update you on a few of the things that happened. Ricochet and Seidel did get their rematch against Roppongi Vice and actually won the titles back. So for the people thinking that Ricochet is leaving New Japan anytime soon, he did win the titles back with Matt Seidel in a very good match, probably the best match they've had with Roppongi Vice. Also, Yuji Nagata, the legendary Yuji Nagata, who has been in a storyline with Shibata, who I guess Shibata's whole angle right now, he's been running through sort of the old guard. He went through Tenzan, defended his title against Tenzan, defended his title against Kojima, and now it was time to defend it against Nagata. And Nagata ended up beating Shibata clean 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring with the backdrop driver, and quite the moment for Nagata this late in his career. Still has a lot of gas in the tank, so that was a super awesome match, and I love Yuji Nagata, so got to be standing up and applauding that match and that finish and this title win for him. So he won the Never title. Lots of title changes on this show. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, they regained the IWGP Never six-man titles against Michael Elgin, Tanahashi, and Yoshi Tatsu. So the Elite is back in control of the Never six-man titles, which is the true hot potato of New Japan right now.
Here's
every
my
time
question.
it's defended.
Is there an over-under for how many times that title will change hands this year?
Geez. I mean, I think this is the sixth time since January 1st. So that's been six title changes since January the 4th, which is the Tokyo Dome show. So yeah, they're really hot on changing those lower level titles. Does it sound familiar?
So the over-under on that might be 18 before the end of 2016 by this point.
Yeah, maybe even by the end of July. I'm not sure, but at the end of that match, something pretty interesting though, Sean. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, they brought a ladder to ringside, and they set it up in the ring. And Tanahashi came and challenged Kenny Omega in English to a rematch for the IWGP IC title. And Omega told him no, and then he climbed the ladder and says, "But if you face me in a ladder match, the answer is yes." So Tanahashi climbs the ladder, and they have a stare down at the top of the ladder, and he accepts the challenge. So it's going to be Kenny Omega versus Tanahashi, and Kenny Omega then at the end of that segment said, "Welcome to American Style." So there's going to be Kenny versus Tanahashi ladder match. That's going to be something else.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you for answering my next question before I asked it.
Yeah, so they're doing the Kenny Tanahashi ladder match, And I'm only about halfway through the show. Jushin Liger, the legend, did come back and challenge Kushida for the IWGP Junior title. Just a classical match. I think they gave them about 20 minutes. Just one of those Liger classics. They had a nice video package to start this one off, showing a lot of Liger's past things. Liger, harking back to the old school, brought Kushida all the way into the middle of the aisle and brainbuster on the cement. So that was quite the spot. Kushida did the thing where the guy gets in right at the last second before you get to the 20 count. And this really was the last second. I mean, my God, I have never seen anything so close in my life. But Kushida, yeah, this was like even maybe closer, 0.7 or 0.8. But anyway, so that match was really great as well. And again, just kind of a real classical, old school junior style. And it ended up being Kushida winning with the hoverboard lock. Took quite a while for Liger to tap out, very dramatic. And then, of course, Liger gives him the hug, sportsmanship, and passes the torch officially to Kushida as the new ace of New Japan Junior Division. So that's about where I am now. And now I just got a few more matches. Goto versus Evil. I'm pretty excited about that one. And then it will be Okada versus Sonata. Sonata is just one of my favorite guys ever right now. This guy's big. He's got muscles. He's agile. He's got a good look. He looks badass. So yet another talent that TNA had on their roster and had no idea what to do with. So it's just hilarious to see him versus Okada, another guy who TNA had and didn't know what to do with. So those two, I'm sure, are going to have a killer match, and I'm really excited for that one. And then in the main event, it's going to be Ishii versus Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Really good show so far, and I'm going to go watch the rest of it. So after that long-winded review, Sean, anything you want to say?
You know what? I can't follow that, so I'm not even going to try. I just know that we get 1 week closer to New Japan in North America. Let's call it.
What's the match you guys are looking most forward to at the show you're going to?
They haven't announced anything other than 2 matches at this point, and I'm not really looking forward to either of them, actually. It's Tetsuya Naito versus Moose, which will be good, but it's not one of those ones you stay up at night dreaming about. No. And then we also have Donovan Dijak versus Jay Lethal. So that's what we got so far.
All this awesome talent, you couldn't put Kushida in there with Lethal?
Well, they're all there. Yeah, you're right. But you never know. They did last year when we were there, they did some guys work more than once in the night, so you never know what you're going to get in a TV taping.
Right, yeah, because it's weeks of TV, right?
Yeah, 4 weeks of TV?
4 weeks of TV. You never know what you're going to see. Listen, guys.
Well, next year, Shotgun Chan, hopefully you'll be there with us.
I will. Unfortunately, just due to some scheduling problems, I couldn't be here this week, but I loved last year's show, and I can't wait for the opportunity to do it again next year. Listen, guys, I think it's time for us to go. It's been a wonderful experience working with you again, and I think we covered some great topics. But I'd love it if you guys would do your signature outro for me. And, I can't wait to talk to you guys again. Next week we'll do our show.
Okay, well, from the 2 guests, Luke Forrest and Sean Cunningham, and from the homeowner, Shotgun Chan, we want to say peace, love. Check us out on the Spreaker Web Radio Network, Zeno Radio, WAR Radio, WrestlingAudioRevolution.com. We've got all kinds of different places you can reach us. On Facebook, Twitter, we're everywhere. YouTube, check us out. So peace, love, and Sean, why don't you tell them the rest?
Wrestling Audio Revolution.